The letter comes under the door on a Thursday. You already know what it is before you pick it up, because it arrives at the same point every year, roughly 11 months after you signed. Your rent is going up. There is a number on the page, and there is a date it takes effect. And between those two things, there is no conversation, no meeting, and nobody to ring. You put it on the bench next to the keys, and you go to work, and by the afternoon, you have stopped thinking about it. You will get this letter again when you are 35, and again at 50, and again at 50, and again at 67, when you have stopped working entirely and there is nothing left underneath the number to absorb it with. This is not a video about how to find a cheaper rental. It is not about negotiating with an agent either. It is about what that one letter actually costs across an entire life, and about a single figure at the end of the video that almost nobody renting in this country has ever worked out for themselves. So we are going to read that same letter 4 times. Same paper, same wording, same fortnight of the year. 4 different lives, 4 different amounts of room to move, and by the 4th one, you will understand why the last section of this video is the only part that anybody can still act on. Read it the first time. You are 25. You share a place with 2 other people, your room is the small one, and your share of the rent is $400 a week. The letter says it is going to $540. You read it twice because the jump does not look real. You do the obvious thing. You look for somewhere else. You open a listings app on the train and start scrolling. And this is the first thing nobody warns you about, because the problem you are about to hit is not really about price at all. The national rental vacancy rate hit 0.7% in March this year, below 1%, nationally, across every capital city and most regional markets at once. For context, the pre-pandemic average was somewhere around 3.3%. The market did not tighten. It effectively closed. At 0.7%, you are not choosing a property. You are auditioning for one against 40 other applications, with no leverage of any kind. Rent bidding is prohibited in most jurisdictions in this country, and applicants offer it anyway, unprompted, at inspections, because they can count the number of people standing in the hallway with them. So you sign, not because 540 is fair, but because there is nowhere to go. That is what a vacancy rate does. It converts a negotiation into an instruction, and it does it silently, without anybody having to behave badly for it to happen. Read it the second time. You are 35. You have a partner now, a 2-bedroom place, and between you, the rent is $700 a week. The letter takes it to $750. You have both had pay rises since you moved in, so on paper, this should be absorbable. And here you meet the rule everybody quotes and almost nobody meets. Spend no more than 30% of gross household income on rent. Above that line, you are in what the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare formally classifies as rental stress. It is not a figure of speech. It is a defined threshold used in national housing policy. Here is where the country actually sits. Australian renters now spend a record 33.1% of gross household income on rent. That is a record. It was 26.2% in September 2020. In under 6 years, the typical Australian renting household has moved 7 percentage points of its entire gross income into rent. That is not the worst cases. That is the typical household. The national average has moved past the line that was drawn to identify households in difficulty. The benchmark did not fail. The country crossed it. Read it the third time. You are 50. Circumstances changed and you are on your own again. Same suburb, 1 bedroom this time, and the letter puts you at $705 a week. 705 is not a number I chose to make a point. It is the national median rent as of the June quarter this year, a record high, and annual rental growth accelerated to 5.9% in that same quarter after easing the year before. And this is the mechanism that makes renting different from every other expense in your life. Over the last 5 years, national rents rose 42.9%. In dollar terms, that is about $204 a week added to the median rent, every week, permanently, for everybody renting in the country at the same time. $204 a week. That is more than the entire rent increase in your first letter, applied to the whole country in 5 years. Your wages did not do that over 5 years. Groceries did not do that. Nothing else you buy compounds like that while also being non-negotiable and impossible to opt out of. Read it the fourth time. You are 67. You have stopped working. The letter still comes on the same Thursday, in the same envelope, with the same wording. It has no idea that you have stopped working, and no mechanism to care that your income is now fixed and indexed by somebody else. You receive Commonwealth Rent Assistance, $215.40 a fortnight, $5,600 a year, against a typical annual rent of $19,700 or more, which means the maximum payment of rent assistance covers less than a quarter of the average capital city rent, not most of it, not half, under a quarter, and it does not close. Over one financial year, rent assistance rose 2%, while rents rose 4.5%. The support is indexed to something other than the thing it is meant to cover, so the gap between what the government contributes and what the private market actually charges widens every single year. Not through anybody's malice, through the mechanics of two different indexation formulas running against each other. There were over 325,000 age pensioners receiving rent assistance in June last year. 32% of them, 105,000 people, were still in rental stress after receiving it. And across the wider group of recipients, more than 2 in 5 income units remained in rental stress, even with the payment. That is the fourth letter. Same paper, same wording, and nothing underneath it to absorb the number. Now, here is the part that makes this whole thing worth understanding, because it is the only figure in this entire video that anybody watching can still do something about. And because it reframes every letter that came before it, everybody treats rent as an expense. It is not. Across a lifetime, it behaves like a liability, because it does not stop when your income does, and the only thing that can service it once your income stops is capital that you had to accumulate during the exact years you were paying the rent that made accumulating harder. Super Consumers Australia ran the numbers on exactly this. A single renter needs approximately $659,000 in super for a decent standard of living in retirement. A homeowner aiming at exactly the same spending target needs $322,000, same lifestyle, same weekly budget for everything that is not housing, $337,000. That is the gap, and it is created entirely by housing. Renters need to spend 30 to 47% more than homeowners for the same standard of living, and depending on which city you retire in, that works out to needing between 1.5 and 3 times as much superannuation to end up in the same place. Which reframes every letter in this video. The cost of that Thursday envelope was never the increase written on it. The cost is that you have to arrive at 67 with an extra $337,000 accumulated out of the same income that was already handing a third of itself to the rent that created the gap in the first place. That is the compounding problem underneath all 4 letters. And that is the number to plan against, starting from whichever of the 4 letters you are currently holding. Not the weekly figure on the page, the balance you will need to have built by the end because of it. It is a much larger number, and it is the only one that actually decides how this finishes. So, somewhere tonight, a letter is going under a door in Australia. Same paper, same wording, the same fortnight. It always comes. Somebody is going to pick it up, read the number, put it on the bench, and go to work. And nobody has ever told them what that envelope actually costs. Tell me in the comments which of the 4 letters you are holding right now.